We were discussing the column and struts, and in our last class, we started our discussion with the concept of stability. We discussed about what is stable, neutral, and unstable configuration, and we also looked for the for that into the stability of the long column, and we find that when the load value, axial load that is being applied on the column is less than certain critical value of the load, the column remains stable. That means if some disturbing force acts and the force is removed, column reverts back to its original position. And if the value of applied load, axial load, is equal to the critical load value, PCR, and then in that case the column get deflected and remain in that configuration and doesn't return back to its original position, but there will not be any other further increase in the deflection. And if the P value, the applied axial load, is greater than the critical load, then becomes an unstable condition, and there will be continuous deflection of the column, and it will cause the failure of the column. While we discussed those things, we talked about the Euler's theory, if you remember. So in Euler's theory, we had certain assumptions, and that we also find out that the Euler theory is valid for the long column only. We pick up some sign convention to derive the relation for the Euler column theory for different end conditions, and for that purpose we calculated for the hinged end and for the fixed and free end, that means the cantilever type of end, we calculated the value of the critical load. For the hinged end, the value was for pi square EI by L square, while for the case of free end, it is pi square EI by 4L square. It was 1/4 of the value of what we calculated for the hinged end. We also talked about that in the case of a cantilever type of end, the value becomes 1/4 of what is it in hinged end. So that is not one of the preferred type of ends for the column. And we also talked about that the column will always buckle about the axis about which the moment of inertia is less, because the flexural rigidity is given by E into I. So E being same for the material for both the directions, so it is the I which will decide on which direction the column will bend. So the column will always bend on the side where the moment of inertia is less. So that means if the width B is much bigger than the depth of the column, then it will buckle by the formula BD cube by 12. We can calculate that moment of inertia, not dB cube by 12, because it will be higher value, giving the value of higher value of I. Now in the today's class we will talk about both ends fixed. First we will take we talked about two conditions. One is the hinged end, another is the cantilever end. So this is the third condition that we are going to consider in today's class, that is the both ends fixed. So what you see in this figure here, there is a column which is having the length L, and it is one end is A, another end is B. It is fixed on both the ends. So at the end A also it is fixed, at the end B it is also fixed, and we are applying the axial load P on it, and we want to calculate the critical load value for this. Now let's examine certain facts, that since both the ends of the beam are fixed, therefore there will be some fixing end moments at A and B, because we are not allowing the slope to happen at the fixed end, and we have restrained both the ends. So there will be some kind of a fixing moment that will be acting, which will be called by M0. Okay, so because of this fixing end moment, we can't have the slope at the end of the column. So that's why the column is appearing here straight, and then you see this curve here. Again the column is appearing straight here. So there must be some fixing moment being applied because of the we have restrained the ends. So that fixing moment is taken as M0. Now let's consider a section at a distance x from the end A. So this is the section x we are talking about, and let's say that this is it having a deflection of y. So what will be the value of the bending moment at this section? The bending moment is always load multiplied by the distance, as the load line is given by this line. This is the load line, and the distance from the load line of this section is y. So the value of the bending moment will be P into Y. Because of our sign convention, we say, okay, this is making a concave shape toward the central line, initial straight line. So that's why you are taking it with a negative sign. So it is m equal to minus P into Y. So you see at this section, at this juncture, there is a moment acting because of the applied load, that is given by minus P into Y, and then there is a moment acting because of the restraining moment or the fixing moment at the end. So because of that also there will be moment acting at this place. Now you see this moment which is acting because of the applied load is in clockwise direction. If you see here, this is the load direction, this is the point, so it is in a direction of clockwise, while this fixing moment is in anti-clockwise direction, which is opposite to it. So that's why our formula for deflection equation will be EI d square y by dx square, that equals to m0 minus py. They both are in opposite direction to each other. As I told you, m0 is here, the fixing moment. Now we simplify this equation, and when we simplify this equation, it becomes d square y by dx square plus p by ei into y equal to m0 divided by ei. The general solution of this equation, either you can choose p by ei equal to alpha square, and then you can still write that equation, but I am straight away writing because in the last two cases we have already done this exercise, so you understand what is the meaning of that. So therefore we straight away write the solution in terms of directly in terms of p by ei. So this will be c1 cos x under root of p by ei plus c2 sin x under root of p by ei plus m0 by p. Okay, plus m0 by p. So that is going to be our general solution for this second order ordinary differential equation that we have here in hand. And now we need to determine the constant c1 and c2 by applying the boundary conditions. So for the first boundary condition is at the end A, your deflection is 0, x is equal to 0 all the times. As at deflection at A, the y equal to 0. So at point A, x is 0 and y is also 0. If you substitute x equal to 0, this becomes 0, this becomes 1. So that gives you, and here it you substitute the y equal to 0, this is going to give us c1 equal to minus m0 by p. So the first constant has been determined, and now for the second constant we need to differentiate the equation, because the second boundary condition is about the slope, that the slope is 0 at the fixed end or at x equal to 0. So you differentiate this equation of the deflection, the solution. So you get the dy by dx equal to m0 m0 by p is, you see c1 has a value of minus m0 by p, and because the cos will be having minus sign differentiation, so that's why the minus minus get cancelled out. So m0 by p under root of p by ei multiplied by sin x under root of p by ei plus c2 under root of p by ei cos of under root x cos of x under root p by ei. The differentiation of m0 by p will be 0 because they both are constant quantities, so not dependent on x. Once we get this, we will apply the boundary condition that at x equal to 0 dy by dx is equal to 0. So when you substitute, this becomes 0, this becomes 1, and here it is 0, so that's why we get c2 equal to 0. So now we have got both constant c1 and c2. c2 is c2 part is already 0. You got c1 as minus m0 by p, and you have m0 by p here also. So you bring out the m0 by p common. So m0 by p into 1 minus cos x under root of p by e, that becomes our deflection equation for the column. With this equation, you can calculate the deflection for x equal to 0 to L by substituting different values. So when we substitute at x equal to L, we know that the other boundary the end condition will appear, so that is deflection is 0 at the other end also. At B also we know that the deflection is 0. So at x equal to L also, here we see the deflection is 0. So therefore we substitute these boundary conditions, and when we put x equal to L here and y equal to 0, this is going to give us this equation, and we can reduce it as cos L under root of p by e equal to 1. Cos will be 1 only when theta is equal to pi by 2. So theta is equal to 2 pi or 0. So we take the value of 2 pi here, because 0 is not going to give us any non-trivial solution. So we substitute theta equal to 2 pi here, and we get the value of critical load as 4 pi square EI by L square. So you see here, when we fixed both the ends, the value of critical load that is required to fail the column because of buckling becomes 4 times of what it is at the hinged end, and in fact 16 times of the cantilever end. So this particular type of end conditions would have been preferred if we want to make our column safe. Now the next boundary condition. This is the boundary condition with one end fixed and other end hinged. So we have taken up the case of both ends hinged. We have taken up the case of both ends fixed also, apart from the cantilever end. So in this we have a mixed condition of the ends. So one end of the column is fixed. You see here it is fixed, while at this end is a pinned end. You can see here there is a pin here. So this is the hinged end here. So one end is fixed and A is fixed, while end B is hinged here. Now, because as I told you earlier, whenever we do this kind of fixing at point A, there will be a fixed end moments, and we are going to call this time as MA because it is occurring only at the point A. So I am just saying that it is occurring, this will be MA. You see there will not be any fixing moment at B because at the B there is a hinge end is there. So the slope is permissible there. Here the slope is not allowed. So there is a restraining moment acting which is causing the slope to disappear here. So because of that there is a fixing moment at this end A. Now in order to balance this fixing moment, of course, at point A there will be horizontal reaction at point B which is given by H. So as you see, you can imagine that you are applying a moment on this column like this, that is in the anticlockwise direction. It will produce the reaction force at the hinged end, and the reaction will be H, which will be acting in the direction as shown here. So this will be the direction of horizontal reaction H which will be produced because of the restraining moment that is created on the end A. Now moment due to the applied load, that will be simply load multiplied by the deflection. So at this point, we are at a distance x from the end A, the reflection is y, so the applied moment will be P into y. Okay, the other moment that will be acting will be given by this H is acting at a distance of L minus x. So this distance, you see, so here we have this total distance as L, this distance is x. So the distance here, this will be L minus x. So the horizontal reaction is occurring at a distance of L minus x. So this will produce a moment of H into L minus x in the clockwise direction. So we have H into L minus x minus applied bending moment which is in the anti-clockwise direction. So that is minus Py. So net sum will be giving you the moment here, or mx value here. Now is the time to solve this equation. Let's simplify it as we have done earlier. So we divide the whole equation by EI, so and bring this term to the left hand side. So this is going to give me the term as appearing here. The general solution of this equation will be given by as y1 equal to c1 cos x under root p by ei plus c2 sin x under root p by ei plus h into L minus x by p. So this is our general solution, and c1 and c2 are constant of integration as before, and we are going to determine them by using the boundary condition. So as far as the boundary condition is concerned, we have the fixed end here. So at x equal to 0, the phi is also deflection is 0. You substitute, this becomes 0, this becomes 1, and this x is 0 here. So that will be left, we are left with the c1 equal to minus HL by p. So this is the value of first constant that we are going to determine with the help of our first end condition. The second end condition is, of course, for the fixed end is that the slope is 0. So in order to obtain the slope, we need to differentiate this expression. So we differentiate it with respect to x. So this is going to give me, for c1 I am substituting minus HL by p. Differentiation of cos will also produce a minus sign here. So that's why minus will get cancelled out. So what is left is HL by p under root of p by ei multiplied by sin x under root of p by ei. And the differentiation of this quantity will be c2 under root of p by ei cos of x under root of p by ei. Now here when you differentiate HL by, this becomes two terms, HL by p minus HX by p. So differentiation of HL by p is 0, but for the minus hx by p, because there is x is here, so what is left is minus h by p after differentiating. So this is our equation for slope dy by dx. And now we apply the boundary condition for the x and a. We substitute at x equal to 0, the dy by dx is 0. So when you substitute x equal to 0, this will become 1 and this will become 0. So we are left with condition that, and dy by dx is of course 0 here. So c2 equal to h by p under root of e by eip. So this h by p will become coming to the left hand side, and then you multiply it by ei by p under root ei by p. So that gives you the value of c2 as h by p under root of ei by p. So now we have got both the value of c1 and c2. Let's rewrite this expression here. So we will rewrite this expression using the c1 and c2 that we have just determined. So once we substitute it here, our equation will be y equal to minus hl by p cos x under root p by ei and rest of the terms. Now for this expression, at other end at x equal to l, that means at the hinged end, we also know that the deflection is 0. You see at this end also there is no deflection allowed because it is a hinged end. Slope is not 0 here, but deflection is definitely 0. So we substitute x equal to l, y equal to 0. So when you substitute x equal to l and y equal to 0 here, and this is going to give us here x is substituted as l and y is going to be 0 here, and here x will be also l, so this term also becomes 0 here. So what is left is written over here. So this expression goes off, this is already 0, and only two terms will remain. So when you simplify it, you bring one of the term to the left hand side. This h and p will get cancelled out from both the sides, and what will be left is can be written as tan of l under root of p by ei equal to l under root of p by ei. So this is something similar to tan theta equal to theta. Okay, so tan theta is equal to theta only for theta equal to 4.5 radians. So we know that, so we substitute, okay, theta is equal to 4.5, theta is here l under root of p by ei, so you substitute l under root p by ei equal to 4.5. You can calculate the value of critical load as 20.25 ei by l square. Because all these expressions, the previous expression we have expressed in terms of pi square, so we also express the 20.25 nearly to the pi square. So we find that it is approximately equal to 2 pi square. So we will substitute it here as 2 pi square. So my formula will be 2 pi square ei by l square. Now this is twice the value of what we have calculated for the hinged end, but half the value of what we calculated for the both ends fixed. Okay, so it is double the value of the hinged end and half the value of both ends fixed. So in this way we can calculate the value of critical load for different end conditions, and in the next class or rather in the next lecture we will discuss it furthermore. We will do some numerical also on it.